Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Now I'm getting to the first big blockbuster of 2025, and I don't want to say that this is the review you've all been waiting for because I honestly don't really know who cares, but I'm going to review this movie anyway. It's Captain America Brave New World, directed by Julius Onus, starring Anthony Mackie, Danny Ramirez, Shira Haas, Carl Lumbly, Giancarlo Esposito, and Harrison Ford, and this follows Sam Wilson, who has now stepped into the role of Captain America after the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and after there's an assassination attempt on the president, Thaddeus Ross, played by Ford now, taking over from William Hurt after his passing a couple years ago, at the hands of Isaiah Bradley, played by Carl Lumbly. There's a lot of questions going on as to what happened. He's got to figure it out. I don't know. Look, I've been pretty critical recently on the MCU. Now, I've liked some of the movies more than some other people. I thought Eternals was okay. I really like Shang-Chi, not amazing. And of course, Spider-Man No Way Home, fantastic. Easily the best movie that they've done since Endgame. And then I also loved Black Panther Wakanda Forever. But ever since then, these movies haven't really been doing much. I mean, Deadpool and Wolverine was a lot of fun, but it was ultimately very inconsequential. And this was a movie I was very excited about because I think the Captain America trilogy is one of the best trilogies in all of film, with Chris Evans, of course. I mean, especially those last two. Those are two of the absolute best MCU films. I mean, if you saw, The Winter Soldier made my top 10 of 2014 when I looked back and did my retrospective video on that year. And so I was naturally very, very excited for this, but I heard about a lot of the reshoots, it wasn't going too well, and then the reviews came out, and I was like, oh, okay, what am I going to think about this take on Captain America? And let me also say, I was actually very much a fan of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I think that probably, from what I've seen, I haven't been super caught up, that probably is my favorite show from the MCU. And I really think that Sam Wilson had kind of risen to one of my favorite characters in the MCU. Like, you watch this show and you're like, okay, like, I understand why he is stepping into this position. Now, I'll start with the positives with this film. I think, in some ways, not entirely, it almost feels like a proper sequel. Not really, but it definitely feels like it's continuing off of some of the events that transpired with Thaddeus Ross in Civil War. It definitely feels like a Captain America sequel in that regard, I guess. And then I think really the standouts in this movie are Harrison Ford and Carl Lumbly. Harrison Ford is terrific in this. I really do think, despite some scenes of dialogue that don't really go too well, he's really giving his all. And it is a little unfortunate to hear that there was a lot of problems with him on set. But, considering what I've heard about Harrison Ford, it's not entirely surprising. But you gotta give it to the guy. I mean, he's still, working into his 80s and still delivering in every movie he's in, whether the movie's of quality or not. It's just unfortunate to hear that, of course, but I do think he is one of the best parts of this movie. And also, Carl Lumbly, man. I mean, there's one scene with him as Isaiah Bradley that's legitimately Oscar-worthy. I'm not even kidding. Like, he is acting his ass off. But I also think he's a bit disserviced by some bad dialogue in other parts of the film. And, yeah, I think that's as far as it goes when it comes to the positives with this movie, because there are not many of them. This is a steaming pile of dog shit. This is easily the worst film in the entirety of the MCU, and I am so sick of it. I think that this is such a massive disappointment because this could have been so much more. And instead, as soon as the movie started, with like 15 minutes in, not only were the action sequences so bland and uninspired, but the editing was fucking terrible. I was just watching this, and it's like, it felt like the way they were stitching these action sequences together, it was so sloppy. It didn't feel like there was any, like, momentum building up. There was no cutting on action. It was just like they would cut to a random shot of someone from a different angle that had like no continuity between the cuts, and you could tell they reshot the hell out of this movie, and they aren't even like hiding it. Like, it is extremely blatant that they threw this movie together in the editing room, and I mean that as a very much disservice and a slight against this film, because this was obviously not a directorial vision at all. In fact, I would go as far to say as this movie felt like it was written by AI. Because I know people had some criticisms with Falcon and the Winter Soldier when it came to the politics. I really dug what they did, because I felt like the open and frank dialogue they had around those ideas was even more boundary pushing in some ways than Black Panther. And I'm not saying it's anywhere near as good as Black Panther, let me be very clear about that. But I thought the discussion was very open in a way I don't think Marvel has ever been before about race. And here it is just so dumbed down to the basics, very, very boilerplate ideas that are delivered in a very heavy-handed way, as is the exposition that's setting up like 15 years of Marvel movies and stuff in the past that, one, I mean, if you've been watching the MCU, you should know about, but two, they're trying to catch you up to speed like you haven't been, and I think it really drags the movie down, and it's very, very noticeable. And so, in conjunction with that and the writing of the politics in here, it is just so unbelievably terrible and bland and predictable. The dialogue is like, it's so telegraphed. I could write this in my fucking sleep. Like, it is so bad. And it really does not feel like a genuine script written by a human being. It said, oh, let's plug a Captain America movie into a generator, and then this is what you get. It is just so unbelievably lazy, uninspired, and I hate that we are at this point in the MCU that this has to happen. I mean, maybe I should have been a little less surprised. And I went in with kind of low expectations, but I'm like, it can't be that bad, can it? Oh, I was proved wrong almost immediately. And it is just so unfortunate, because I really don't think Anthony Mackie deserves this. And I'm going to be honest, I think he's much better on the show than he is in this movie. I think he kind of comes off as very bland in this film, and I don't really think that's Mackie's fault. He definitely has some great moments of vitality, and he kind of leaps off the screen with his humor, but this doesn't feel like the Sam Wilson we've come to know over the past two Captain America movies and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It feels like such a step back into the past, or more so a step back into a seemingly very underdeveloped character, which I feel like is a disservice to everything that they've already built up to. And so I really don't think that Sam Wilson deserved this, or Anthony Mackie. I really don't. And it's really unfortunate, because I was really rooting for this movie, and I was really rooting for him, and I know he's a very talented guy. Yeah, this isn't it, folks. I mean, this really is so bad. And Danny Ramirez, another guy who I think is, a very talented, good-looking dude. I mean, he was in Top Gun Maverick. He was good in that. Granted, he wasn't, front and center or anything. He gets disserviced with some very terrible dialogue and some very, very egregious Marvel humor here. And he's kind of like stepping into the role of Falcon. I guess it's the one spoiler I'll give you. I don't give a shit. You're not going to see this fucking movie anyway. And I feel like even though he really doesn't have a lot to work with, there is one scene at the end that I thought was like really, really great from him. But yeah, he isn't even like that great throughout this entire film, and I feel like he should be given better opportunities as an actor, and not this slop. I mean, this is really what this is. It is just undeniably sloppy in so many ways. There are a couple really great scenes in this film that involve, Carl Lumbly and Harrison Ford, who are really bringing their A game more than anyone else in this film. And it just is so incoherent in so many ways. I think the villain is just so rushed and underdeveloped. Giancarlo Esposito is absolutely wasted in this. And it's funny because when you first see him, like, laughing at the screen because he feels like Gus from Breaking Bad. But then, as the movie goes along, they do absolutely nothing with him. It's like, are you really going to do that to Giancarlo Esposito? Like, oh my goodness, this movie is so terrible. I hated this gigantic piece of shit. I think that this is probably the worst comic book movie, at least on a big budget scale, since Batman v Superman. And I honestly think it's worse, because at least Batman vs Superman had something inspired to it. This has nothing. This is just assembly line bullshit that was put into a generator and then packaged out to the audience after being chopped to bits and thrown together with no cohesion whatsoever. And it's really, really disappointing, because I think this really taints the legacy of the Captain America movies. Granted, I don't think that those movies will ever be seen as any less because of this, but it is unfortunate that this has the Captain America name attached to this film, because the title of this movie, Brave New World, could not be further from what is present in this film. And I'm going to give this film a 3 out of 10. This movie absolutely sucks. I really don't think that you should go rush out and see this. Honestly, you should wait to see this on Disney Plus if you really want it. Because I don't want to say any movie should, bomb at the box office, but I really do think that Disney and Marvel need to learn a lesson here, because they really have not been learning anything, and I'm really mad that I spent my hard-earned money on this film. And sorry to be so harsh, but I think once you have this much money and this much clout, I think, you deserve to be heavily criticized. And I feel like this is also a disservice to the director, Julius Ona, because he didn't direct this movie. He was apparently out of the movie a long time ago, and they just threw his name on it. And I feel bad for him, because, after Loose, which I thought was a great movie, he's just kind of been stuck in director's hell. And I don't think that this movie is going to pull him out at all. I think, if anything, it's going to dig him a deeper hole. And so, my best of luck to Julius Ona, because, I feel like maybe he's a filmmaker who has something interesting to say soon. So I hope he's able to overcome such a gigantic disaster that this is. But anyways, you guys let me know what you think about Captain America Brave New World in the comments below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And if you disagree, why? Please let me know all that and more, and please smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you want to get more movie reviews like this. I'm also going to be reviewing Paddington in Peru, which is one I am actually excited to talk about, and we'll be getting that out very soon to y'all. And until then, take it easy, and we'll talk to you in a little bit.